going to be a ton of fun here over the next 3 hours, and we'll try to have a little fun along the way and not to suck in the process. We'll dive into a bunch here over the next 3 hours. I'm waiting. I'm salivating. That the countdown is upon us before you know it for the start of this NFL season. And, with all of the madness of what we had in a great NBA final and the World Cup that got us through these last few weeks, maybe it's gotten lost on you. It has not gotten lost on me. So we will have a stock up, stock down a little bit later on in the show on 3 teams that I am buying and 3 teams that I am selling for the 2026 season. Yes, we will have you covered as far as France and Morocco is concerned. I'm not going to pretend to be resident soccer expert John Jastremski. That said, I have embraced, I have loved, I have enjoyed the World Cup and what it has brought to the table as far as some action, as far as winning a couple of bets, as far as losing money on Mexico and England, and then, of course, losing money on the United States and Belgium. But, hey, that's a story for another day. We'll have a preview of France and Morocco and the quarterfinals and semifinals and all that good stuff with my old pal Anthony DeBundo over at The Ringer, who's one of my old pals, as you know. And then we'll also take a peek at what that futures board looks like in the NBA now that the dust is settled within the Eastern Conference. And look, everybody talking LeBron, and we'll do so later. There's an obvious fit for him as far as like wanting to win a championship. And if that's the priority, and if that's the goal for the King in this quote-unquote farewell tour, which, by the way, I can't stand. I mean, I've seen so many of these farewell tours, and I'm a Yankee fan, for goodness sakes, which we will get to. These farewell tours make me sick. They're nauseating. They're lame. They're hokey. They're silly. You want to win, there's one spot for LeBron James to go. Now, we're basically at the halfway point of this Major League Baseball season. Can you believe the odds makers? And I know our friends over at BetMGM, they're very, very smart people. They have their algorithms. They have their formulas. They sit in risk rooms. They figure all of this stuff out and do so at the highest of levels. I have a lot of respect for them. That said, somebody's got to help me out here. How are the odds makers installing the Yankees as significant a favorite as they are at the moment to win the American League? Have the odds makers not paid attention to what they've seen over the last few weeks? A tradition unlike any other is taking shape for everyone to enjoy, love, and for the Yankee hater to cherish, because they've definitely gotten accustomed and they have definitely gotten used to the Boone swoon, the June swoon that carries over into July, and the Yankees basically putting together a stretch of baseball where they look like one of the worst teams in the sport. If you think I'm being dramatic, if you think I'm overreacting, go and look at the Yankee offensive numbers over the last few weeks and go and tell me otherwise. I think the Yankees just struck out again. I think the Yankees just left another 2 runners on base. I think the Yankees just committed another error in the field. How does a team that has the talent that the Yankees do, and we'll get to the Aaron Judge elephant in the room and the idea that he is not playing, how can you present a stretch of baseball for what we've seen over the last 3 weeks and then sit there and tell me, yeah, guess what? You're still going to be favorites to go and win the American League. We did this last year, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Everyone was dismissive of the Toronto Blue Jays all regular season. Oh, their run differential's not any good. Oh, just wait until October. Oh, it will be a different script when they match up in the postseason. And then we all lived it. We all watched it. The Yankees died like dogs. There's something missing within the intestinal fortitude of this team. And I'm a dope and an idiot for a variety of different reasons, which we'll get to when we detail some of the bets I made in the 2025 NFL season. But I thought it was different with this Yankee group. Because when Aaron Judge went down a few weeks ago and the general consensus around the sport was, what are the Yankees going to do? I'm proclaiming, hey, Yankees are going to be fine. Ben Rice, he's in a home run derby. He's an all-star. He can carry the offense. Cody Bellinger, he's an all-star. He's going to pick up the slack. Jazz Chisholm, Trent Grisham, on and on we go. Yankees can't score. And then you compare them to Tampa Bay. And look, no one is going to match rosters, match payroll, match brand names in comparing the two teams. Here's what I know about Tampa Bay. They're not intimidated. And they flat out just win. They win and they win and they win. So the odds makers have this division basically at even money. I think you're getting an absolute gift if you go and take the Tampa Bay Rays. And for someone that's going to make the point to me with this Yankee group, hey, when Aaron Judge gets back, it will be different. That's true. Yankees are going to find their way to the playoffs. But as far as winning a championship, which is what their odds indicate they should be talking about and doing, I'm skeptical. You won't have Schlittler set up to pitch twice in a 5-game series. You'll play a team you can't beat. Tampa Bay owns the Yankees at Tropicana Field. It's incredibly problematic. And that's why, for me, a good exercise here for all of us in looking to capitalize financially on the odds boards within the American League, look down the line and find somebody to take you on a ride. Because there are a ton of warts, there are a ton of problems, there are a ton of deficiencies with the Yankees. And our friends at MGM are going to give you some good value on a bunch of teams to go and win the American League. But it's a matter of like identifying and picking the team that could go and get there. Like Tampa at plus 500 is a decent price. They're going to win their division. Do they have enough oomph within their offense up and down the lineup to go and get to a World Series? Love me some Caminero. Love me some Yandy Diaz. These guys are gamers. They're studs. They're two of the better players in the sport that nobody talks about because they play on the Tampa Bay Rays. But it's still a team that's got like Cedric Mullins playing center field for them. So I get the skepticism where it's like, well, JJ, in postseason play, are they going to have enough within their lineup? The team that profiles is the obvious choice to go and buy low on in the American League, the Seattle Mariners. Because the pitching staff is loaded. They were in the ALCS last year. They made it to Game 7 of the ALCS last year. And have I mentioned the fact that the Big Dumper has basically done exactly that and not been a repeat of what should have been or could have been an MVP season? No, he's basically has a 5-something OPS. Is that really going to continue for Cal Raleigh all season? And I look at franchises that need to be in like the all-in category. We saw it with the New York Knicks and the way they handled each of the last 2 years in their championship run and then falling short and making those sort of bold strokes, first with the Cat trade, then with a decision to fire Tom Thibodeau, which, by the way, I absolutely hated. And I think it's fair to say Leon Rose knew exactly what he was doing. I'll take batting 500 on the Knicks because I love the Cat trade. I didn't love the Tibbs firing. The point being is it worked out. A team like the Seattle Mariners has not been in a World Series in the history of their franchise. Franchise that has had the likes of Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, Edgar Martinez. I could go on and on. Ichiro Suzuki. That's a team where you look at your pitching staff and say, hey, wide open American League. How do I not invest? How do I not go all in if there is a move that can put me over the top? And, you know, it's interesting. In the American League, and really in baseball, we'll get to this when we dive into the National League, there are a bunch of teams that can convince themselves because of how wide open it feels, especially in that AL. The vulnerabilities of the Yankees, the fact that Tampa, hey, little engine that could, but do you buy him come October? I think you should, at least at plus 500. I still think it's a juicy price to win the league, but we'll give you one that's even a deeper dive. And look, this team is kind of teetering on what they want to do with the deadline because for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, how many times have you heard, well, if Tarek Skubal goes here or if Tarek Skubal goes there, it changes everything. I've heard that in New York about the Yankees. I'm sure if you're in Milwaukee, hey, if I can get Skubal with Mizorowski, maybe that could get me over the hump in the National League. Hey, if you're the Rays, we don't have much of a payroll. We're not going to re-sign him, but the hell with it. We could get Rasmussen, McClanahan, and they had the best pitcher in the American League, Skubal right there with Cam Schwarber. How do I not do it? But if you're the Detroit Tigers, and maybe you missed the boat on taking Skubal and trading him in the offseason and maximizing his value, maybe you can still maximize it now. Don't you entertain possibly the idea of making the playoffs? I know it could be ugly if you lose him in 2 months, but if you're not going to get the moon and the stars, and all of a sudden the American League is there for the taking, like the Tiger run differential, if you pay attention to that sort of stuff, it's right there with Chicago and Cleveland. They had a horrific May. They've scored runs. They have a 1-2 punch of Skubal and Valdez. You throw in the idea of Mize. They had high hopes going into the year. Do you completely abandon that if you're the Tigers? It's the most fascinating decision that could alter the balance of power in both the American League or the National League. Do you keep or do you move Tarik Skubal? I think the general sense is, hey, trade him. It's not our year. Tigers been waiting a long time too. They've been in the playoffs each of the last 2 years. I think you play it out over the next 2 weeks. I think you let this team determine exactly what you're going to do that final week of July into early August. And with the deadline moving to August the 3rd, which is a very important date that you got to monitor here, folks. Very important date. You give your team more time to go and say, hey, what exactly are we? Are we a legit contender? Or are we a team that should be blowing it up? If you're putting Skubal on the market, you're going to get, you would hope, a ton. But if I know, hey, I play really well for 2 weeks, Yankees are vulnerable, Rays can be had, like the Mariners, they should be all in, but I feel like I can get them too. It's a tough call if you're the Tigers. We'll see if they make it a tough call in the next 2 weeks. But my goodness, that's a team I'd take a stab on a future with. To win the American League Central, crazy price. And if you really want to get nuts, we love a long shot in the BetMGM portfolio from time to time. Tigers put together another 2 weeks. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they can, hey, challenge the White Sox, challenge the Cleveland Guardians, and find their way to an American League title, at least in the American League Central. And if you get in, hey, that's the beauty of this thing in the American League. You don't have the same vibe within the National League. In the American League, if you are in the dance, if you are in the tournament, you have a shot. And the odds and the sort of prowess the odds makers are giving the New York Yankees is totally unjustifiable. Sorry. Despite what my feelings might have been preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. Since 2010, how many pennants for the Yankees in almost 2 decades? 1. And quite possibly the weakest American League I've ever seen. I thought this year might be weaker. It's wide open. But that trust level that I had within the Yankees 2 years ago, it's not there right now. Tampa Bay exposing it and exposing it in a big way. We're just getting started here on You Better You Bet. It's John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos. A loaded show. We're buying and selling 3 NFL teams for the 2026 season. There is an obvious spot for LeBron. We know Golden State. We know the homecoming in Cleveland. But if he wants to win a championship, there's one spot that stands out above the rest. We'll get into that. A lot more to do. We'll dive into the National League, where sometimes a managerial change is everything. And we're seeing that with one team here in 2026. We're coming right back.
The story.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet. It is John Jastremski filling in for the dude himself, the great Nick Kostos, right here on Westwood One Sports. We are presented by BetMGM, and this segment is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small business with affordable coverage options. Quote today at progressivecommercial.com. And was just telling the crew, and we have a bunch of guys and gals who are Chicago-based. I'm a coward for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes you got to have a little bit more chutzpah when you make these futures bets. And maybe this is a little food for thought as we get ready for the NFL season. And I feel like over the next few weeks, I take my vacation the last week of July. That is when I really get in the lab and I officially map out what the NFL year is going to look like in my mind. I already have ideas. I already have 3 teams that I'm going to tell you later on in the show that I'm all in on as far as bets I'm going to make. I have 3 teams that I'm absolutely going to be selling on, and we'll see if that ends up making some of our staff here at You Better You Bet happy or not so happy, but be that as it may. As I do all of this, you have to play escalators. What do I mean by that? The Chicago White Sox. I bet them as an over this year. It's one of my favorite overs of the season. It's going tremendously well. Like the White Sox are in contention to make the postseason. They had a win total that was in like the high 60s. I forget what the exact number was. I'll pull it up. I'll look in the account. I'll give you the exact information. All I know is that cash is hitting my wallet, which is amazing. You know, when you hit a future and it cashes in a positive way before you hit, I don't know, mid-August, it puts a big fat smile on your face. That's amazing. But why am I a coward? The reason I'm a coward is because I knew the division stunk going into the year. But as confident as I was in that White Sox over, didn't bet them to make the playoffs. Instead, idiot host number 1 looked at a team in Kansas City and said, oh, it's Bobby Witt Jr. They have good pitching. I'm getting in on the Kansas City Royals who were in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They stink. They're atrocious. They have played defense. I've watched, sadly, believe it or not. Hi, my name is John Jastremski. I have a problem. I've watched in its entirety the last 2 collective games between the Mets and the Kansas City Royals. That's what happens when you work at SNY New York and you're being a good television personality. You're making sure that you're still keeping up with a team that is as vile and as rotten as terrible as humanly possible. I get it. You can admit I have a problem for watching the Mets and the Royals each of the last 2 games. I did. The Royals play defense that's similar to men's league teams that I would see all throughout the tri-state area. They had to dream a little bit. And a little bit later on in the show, you know, Justin Verlander is retiring at the end of this year. And for some people, they're probably wondering, hey, Justin Verlander, is he still even in Major League Baseball? I feel like since he's left the New York Mets and the Houston Astros, it's not a name that's been, you know, coming off the tongue. You're right about that. It's been a tough road for him each of the last 2 years. He had like an irrelevant season in San Francisco. He came back to the Tigers and we've barely seen him. There is no question that Justin Verlander, when he retires, you could just basically count down 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And he is a first ballot, no question, Hall of Famer. No doubt. The championships, an MVP, Cy Youngs, longevity, strikeouts, you name it. So we will a little later in the show. And I want to make sure I give this to you as far as my age demographic, my timeline demographic. I'm born in 1988. So getting closer to 40, which is disturbing on a lot of different levels, on a lot of different fronts. I get that. Because I used to look at 40 and I would hear 40 years old and I'm like, wow, you're old. Now I'm like, oh, 40, you're in your prime, baby. Come on now. Because I would always equate it to athletes. You'd see athletes at the end of their careers in their late 30s, and you'd be like, yeah, they're getting old. That's when Paul O'Neill is celebrating at Yankee Stadium. That is, when John Elway is finishing up his career against the Green Bay Packers. He's in his late 30s. Dan Marino losing 62-7, which still haunts me to this day and still is the most sad element of my sports fandom. For those of you who are new to me here on Westwood One Sports, the fact that I root for I think the most depressing team in the NFL, other than the New York Jets, the Cleveland Browns are up there too, but my Miami Dolphins just, Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish had it right. The Dolphins absolutely do make me cry. 62-7 is right at the top of that list. But I bring all of this up because I give you that timeline of sports fandom, 88 and beyond. So later on in the show, I will put together a list of my top 10 all-time starters in Major League Baseball. And where does Verlander fit on that list? Is he top 3? Is he top 5? Is he top 7? You'll have to wait and see. Now, Justin Verlander is out of the American League. The National League at the moment, folks, Dodgers are even money to get to their 3rd straight World Series at the moment. And I think there is a consensus amongst most people. I don't want to fade the Dodgers under any circumstance. Comes with it. I think there's one team in particular that I would want to get on board with at the moment that I think would have the best shot, deadline notwithstanding, to go and take them down. And that would be a team that will be hosting the All-Star game next week in the city of brotherly love. And I know before the hater comes at me, JJ, didn't we just watch that series a year ago in the postseason? Didn't the Phillies go quietly in the night, not being able to score any runs against the Los Angeles Dodgers, Kerkering throwing the ball away and booting the ball in one of the most embarrassing plays to end a series you're ever going to see? Why do you want to get on board with the Philadelphia Phillies? A couple of different reasons. There is an element at play that is starting to take on this sort of magical vibe. Don Mattingly. The Phillies made a managerial change, which worked brilliantly for them a few years ago. Girardi, who was one of my favorites, got let go. They bring in Rob Thompson. They get red hot. They make the playoffs. They got to the World Series, built a early lead against the Astros, yucked that up. But it was a great season for them. They kind of have been floundering, a lot of bitter postseason defeats. Arizona, the Mets, the Dodgers last year. And they made a managerial change in the first 2 weeks. Like the Mets and the Phillies could have gone one of two ways. The Mets kept their manager. They should have fired him after losing 12 games in a row. The season was lost by the time they made a change. Phillies made it early. Thompson out, and in comes Mattingly, who thought he was done. Like he's never managing again. He's never getting an opportunity again. You know what Don Mattingly used to manage? The Los Angeles Dodgers. Don Mattingly, another one of these beloved athletes of mine, right there with Marino, never won. Hung over his head throughout his entire life as a player, as a coach with the Yankees. Coaches with the Yankees for forever, doesn't win. Goes to the Dodgers, they win after he leaves, doesn't win. Now maybe he's got the team to go and do it. Sanchez and Wheeler is a 1-2 punch. And look at all the star power within their lineup. Schwarber, Harper, Turner, big year out of Marsh, who's an all-star this season. That's another team that should be aggressive. And I always love to give you a price because it matters, right? The Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies are basically right around the same price. I know the Braves got off to a hot start. Have you seen the way they've played over the last few weeks? Uninspiring. Deadline time. Who do I have more confidence in to go and make the sort of move that's needed in an aggressive way that's like, we mean business? Dave Dombrowski. Because that's his MO. He is not concerned about the future. Like, there's something refreshing about that in a sport that has so many GMs now that hug their prospects and overvalue their prospects way too much. AJ Preller's like this in San Diego. Dombrowski's like this in Philly. He's like, dude, I'm not going to be here forever. I don't care what it looks like in a couple of years. I'm in it to win it. And you know what? That's refreshing. In a way, I wish the team in New York acted the way that Dave Dombrowski and the Philadelphia Phillies are going to act. I expect them to have a busy deadline. And I just think the narrative of Mattingly against the Dodgers, the revenge angle from a year ago, the starting pitching, you roll out Wheeler and Sanchez twice in a 5-game series, or maybe 4 times in a 7-game series. That's frightening. And let me remind something to everybody who is basically crowning the Dodgers a fait accompli to win the NL and to win the World Series. I get it. I get it. But do I need to remind you of the fact that last year, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. The Dodgers were thoroughly outplayed by the Toronto Blue Jays. This is not speculation. No, this is fact. Toronto outplayed them. They should have won. They didn't. It's not taking a championship away from the Dodgers, but what it speaks to is it like, oh my God, the Dodgers, they're unbeatable. There's no way to win. No, they are beatable. They can be had. The Blue Jays had them. The Phillies were almost on the verge of getting a series back to a 5th game in Philadelphia. Maybe after winning 3 and 4 at Dodger Stadium, they couldn't score a run. This is not some given now that the Dodgers are just going to waltz to their 3rd straight World Series. I refuse to believe that, despite how many games they may win in the regular season. And this is where I would push back on the odds boards at BetMGM. I feel like I'm doing that a lot today, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for. There's no way in the world I'd bet the Brewers at a little under 5-1 to win the NL. I can't do it. Can't do it. Now, Scooble's on that team. Maybe it's a different story. Pat Murphy squeezes every last ounce of talent out of him. I know Mizorowski's a stud. I know Turang and Chiriza. They got some hitters that people maybe across America do not know too well and are really, really good players, including their catcher Contreras, who's tremendous. I've seen too many flameouts from the Brewers in the postseason. It's par for the course. There's no way in the world you're getting my money, my investment on Milwaukee. And I'd be worried about what I've seen from the Braves over the last few weeks. I think that pitching staff is a hot mess. I have absolutely no confidence that Chris Sale will be standing upright by the end of this year because I look at Chris Sale, and when you're built like me as a starting pitcher and I'm a tall, skinny dude, it becomes problematic. You know, it's easy for me to go out and run and play golf a couple of times a week. Yeah, I'm in shape to do that. If I am trying to throw a baseball with as much force and as much movement and torque and velocity and everything that comes with it, 96, 97 miles an hour, do it every 5th day and hope that I have anything left by the end of the year, I think you run into trouble there. And I have no confidence that Sale can stay on the mound throughout the rest of this year. And if he doesn't, Atlanta doesn't have the answers. I'm a sucker for the narrative, baby. Donnie freaking baseball. He thought he was out. Thought it was over when he left that Toronto dugout as a bench coach last year when they lost Game 7 of the World Series. His son's in the front office. Sure, Dad, come back. Work with Rob Thompson. Gets the call. And man, I'd love to see him win. And at plus 700 to win the National League, guess what? Maybe this is the heart talking. But I think with future Hall of Famers in the lineup, a big-time rotation, a crazy closer in Duran, I'm in. It's a bet I've made. You tailing? You fading? We are just getting started. Loaded. You better, you bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos right here on Westwood One Sports. We'll get to those 3 teams I'm buying, 3 teams I'm selling in the NFL. We'll get you ready for the World Cup as far as these quarterfinals and then soon to be these semifinals with our guy Anthony DeBundo. Steve Phillips at the top of hour 2, which will give us a nice little look at what the trade deadline is going to be, the big names to watch, the teams to watch. We'll see if we can get Steve on that Philadelphia narrative. I'd like the sound of that. LeBron James, when we return, it's Cleveland, it's Golden State. No. If he wants to win a championship, there's one place to go. And hey, who's coming for my Knicks in the Eastern Conference? I'm not exactly shaking in my boots. We'll come right back.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Wow, well played by the crew. I didn't think I'd get a little Hootie. And apparently Hootie has worked its way into the equation now, back-to-back shows. Now, I was not here 24 hours ago, so I cannot take the credit for it. But, I mean, if you see Dan Marino behind me, you know full well the Dolphins most certainly make me cry. It's John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos. You Better You Bet right here on Westwood One Sports. Get an early payout for a 2-goal lead. Place a pregame bet on any World's Game match. If your team takes a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours, regardless of the outcome of the game. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. And we've seen a couple instances in this World Cup where we've seen some 2-goal leads go by the wayside. So if you take the dog, they get up, you end up having some epic stuff working against you. Shout out Egypt. Well played, Tyler. I did not bet that game. What I am upset about is, and this is what happens sometimes when you're a father of a 1-year-old, and Tuesday is Daddy Ellie one-on-one day. His mommy is like taking 10 zillion calls in the office. That would have been a golden opportunity for me to go and hop on board Argentina on the live line. I have a lot of people in my life who were all over this because, as we know, Argentina with Messi was a huge favorite in the game. They fell behind. There were some folks who may have been rooting and investing in Egypt who are questioning the legitimacy of the win. Oh, well. But for those of you who bet Argentina and ended up cashing in on that, that is what we call yet another missed opportunity. There are always missed opportunities. So it's unfortunate when you miss out on one that felt kind of obvious to get on board with. So I did not, but crazy. The World Cup has been great. For somebody that is like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to you folks. I hop on every 4 years. I don't watch soccer religiously. There's too much going on. And I don't have that tie-in. Like, it's at this point in my life, is World Cup action going to inspire John Jastremski to like adopt a Premier League team? No. There's no chance in the world I'm going to get into the MLS. Like, it's just that ship has sailed for me as a 38-year-old. And I have way too much on my plate. There's already way too much I watch. I already get scolded when on like late nights, I'm sitting there watching whatever like a late NBA college basketball game may be during the winter. So if I'm going to go and now run it by the missus, yeah, in addition to all this other stuff that I watch, you know, I'm going to start throwing in like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. early games. That's a one-way ticket to the divorce train. I mean, my golf game is bad enough. See, this is why I want to get my daughter into golf. I really want to get my daughter into golf because if I get my daughter into golf, it's daddy-daughter time. And it gets daddy in less trouble when he's out there for 4.5 hours at a time. Hey, it's daddy-daughter bonding. We're enjoying a great game. I'm teaching my daughter life lessons. She's 1 year old. I'm hoping and praying that we could get her into golf. Like, I talk about winning and willing these bets into existence. That is a bet. I'll trade off like 10 losing futures in a row if I can turn my daughter into a lifelong golfer. Please. I'm going to do everything in my power for that. I digress. I know it's a little bit of an awkward transition, but we're going to hit an awkward transition. Futures. Can you believe that it's a month later? And not that our non-New York audience is probably like, oh, God, is he really going to go there? I'm still basking in the glory of this championship for the Knicks. Not only because of the improbability of it, but because of the fact that I had him to win the Eastern Conference. I ended up taking like a 15-1 flyer on them. I think I've done that each of the last 2 years. And as the postseason went on, it became more and more of a possibility. It became more and more of a reality. And just looking now at the complexion of the Eastern Conference, and I know a lot has happened between Jaylen Brown leaving Boston and going to Philadelphia. Philadelphia, in theory, should be a much better team this year. The problem for Philadelphia is they have a certain someone who plays on their team by the name of Joel Embiid, who's one of the biggest losers in American sports. He's one of those guys I can never see winning a championship. He never stays healthy. He is a loser. Wake me up when Joel Embiid is holding up the Larry O'Brien trophy. Sorry. Like, can you envision that? I can't. And it's why I can't take Philadelphia seriously. Then you have the Toronto Raptors. I love the Kawhi reunion. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think they'll be a much better team. I think he fits their roster much better than Brandon Ingram fits their roster. And I do think from, a storyline narrative type standpoint, Kawhi Leonard should never left Toronto to begin with. He found a home there, won a championship. Like, you go to a team, win a championship, you leave the next year to go to one of those teams that we could never imagine winning a championship, like the Jets are on that list. My Dolphins were on that list. The Knicks were on that list until they won. Like, the Clippers are one of the most cursed teams in all sports, and that was on full display with Kawhi. Some of it his fault, some of it due to unforeseen circumstances. But I like Kawhi in Toronto. I'm intrigued by Kawhi in Toronto. In totality, I don't think that team is better than New York Knicks. Miami. Giannis going to Miami with Pat Riley and his presence, with Eric Spoelstra, who's one of the best coaches in the league, and a defensive front court that's going to be loaded. Bobby Portis, Bam Adebayo, and Giannis is going to be a pain in the neck to score on. It will not be easy to generate offense on the Miami Heat. But there is something to be said for the NBA being a guard-driven league in many ways. Where's the play for Miami coming from out of the backcourt? You tell me. I would take the Knicks against them. The Celtics? How are the Celtics the second favorite in the Eastern Conference? You want to tell me they win a bunch of regular season games? Great. You want to tell me they've played well without Jaylen Brown? If you look at some of their metrics over the last few years, sure. But in the postseason, that guy was a finals MVP 2 years ago. They got a player back who never plays in Paul George and is clearly on the back nine of his career. He's already hitting, what? I don't want to say hole 18. That's unfair because he's still a useful NBA player. What is he hitting? He's hitting the 14th to the 15th hole. And you took a guy who's literally in the prime, right where they should be, right around hole 8, hole 9, and you made that trade-off because the executive running the team doesn't like him. And maybe there's some bad blood between he and Jason Tatum, whatever it might be. Knicks beat the Celtics 2 years ago. Now Paul George is in the fold. I'm scared of the Celtics. I don't think so. There's one team in the East that scares me. And nobody's talking about him. And there is a major what if as far as injury is concerned. The team, as all of this moving and shaking is happening within the Eastern Conference, and I got news for you. When we do LeBron a little bit later on in the show, LeBron going to Cleveland, as cool a storyline as it may be, and it's probably from a narrative standpoint the best place for him to go because it doesn't matter if he doesn't win. People are going to love him no matter what. He's already won for them. It's storybook in many ways. Forget about the storybook. In the Eastern Conference, that team's got two immortal losers on it. Donovan Mitchell is a playoff loser. James Harden, I was ragging on Joel Embiid. James Harden's like, hold my beer, buddy. Okay? That's why I get insulted when I hear James Harden is putting like a top 15, top 20 players of all time. If you look at advanced stats, they're like, oh, his advanced stats are great. He's a loser. And you wouldn't want him anywhere near your team in a playoff series because his teams fall short consistently and he disappears consistently. So he's a part of the Cavaliers' future. I don't care if LeBron at 40 years old is going there or not. You can't overcome that DNA. But the team that's frightening, if they get a certain someone back, the Indiana Pacers. And if you look at BetMGM, the odds are not reflective to how dangerous the Pacers can be. If Halliburton is able to go and regain form. Do they have one of the best coaches in the NBA? Rick Carlisle? Check. Did Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam thoroughly outplayed Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns 2 years ago in the conference finals? Check. I love living in the what-if game. If Tyrese Halliburton does not blow out the Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, would they have had a live chance of beating the Oklahoma City Thunder? They would have. That number is simply too high. So I am very confident about my Knicks in next year's Eastern Conference. But it's not the teams that are making all of these moves that's kind of like keeping me up at night. If there's one team that kind of gives me that sort of feeling of queasiness, it's the Indiana Pacers. And for what it's worth, I think you should bet and bet accordingly. Now, when we come back in hour 2, Tarek Skubal could be the guy that alters this year's trade deadline. I need to get a sense and I need to get a feel for, okay, who else could be those sort of big moves that go and take this thing completely out of whack? Is it Mason Miller? Is there somebody from an offensive perspective that I don't know about? Steve Phillips, longtime GM of the New York Mets, and now is a media superstar at MLB Network Radio on Sirius. Hear him on with the dog all the time. You see him on the MLB Network. He looks better in the suits than I do. I look pretty good in the suits, and I bring it. Steve brings it, and we need to get all the perspective on who's staying, who's going, and the legitimacy of the Tampa Bay Rays, and where I should be with my concern level with my New York Yankees.
This is Westwood One Sports.
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
It's hour two. You better you bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos right here on Westwood One Sports. A lot happening here in the middle of July, and before you know it, the NFL is going to be back in our lives, which is an absolute thing of beauty. And you know what's an absolute thing of beauty too? Me looking at these Eastern Conference odds. We have the Knicks at plus 325 to win the conference, and they are properly priced. The Knicks should be favorites to win the Eastern Conference, even with the loss of Mitchell Robinson on his way to the Boston Celtics. You're bringing everybody back. It's the same starting five that thrived in basically every postseason series that you played. And continuity and vibes, camaraderie, chemistry, that goes a long way, as they say. Celtics are not properly priced. I'm sorry. They're not. The Celtics should not be the second favorite within the Eastern Conference. Like, to me, I'm putting them even with Toronto, and I'm putting them even with Philadelphia. And as I said earlier, Philadelphia is the team that has all the pizzazz by going and getting Jaylen Brown. Miami's the team with the pizzazz going and getting Giannis. I like Toronto and Kawhi, but guess what? Indiana's that team to watch. Keep an eye on the Indiana Pacers. Now, when it comes to LeBron James, listen, nothing is going to be more insufferable than the next few weeks, or maybe the next few days, or maybe it lasts until football season. Who the hell knows what the duration of the LeBron free agency tour is going to be and how long he wants to play this out and whatever it might be. Do we have Steve, by the way? I'm asking the crew. We're waiting on Steve Phillips, so I want to make sure we have him before I pop him up. No, not yet. Okay. Not yet. We'll have Steve Phillips in a little bit. I'll get back to that. Nothing's going to be more insufferable than the whole LeBron James deal. That said, if he's thinking about winning a championship, I think the priorities for LeBron are drastically different than his wants, needs, view, etc., for what he wants the final chapter of his career to go on to be. So everything about narrative and storyline would be great in either Cleveland or Golden State. I think it's better in Cleveland. He's played there twice. He's the hometown boy coming back. The kid from Akron, ending the drought, getting a chance to be back on that floor one last time. Like, all of that to me, if you're LeBron James, means something. And from like a standpoint of LeBron and where he's at, like, he goes to Cleveland. They don't win, but like they're really good for a year. Like, they win 50 games. That matters. A lot more than that in a little bit. We got Steve Phillips, the outstanding MLB Network personality. You hear him on MLB Network radio all the time. He's always a great spot with the dog, and the former GM of the New York Mets. Steve, thanks for a few minutes. It's JJ. How's it going, my man?
JJ, I'm good. Pass on my hellos to Nick. Last time I was on, he didn't think I knew his name, but I just make sure Nick knows that I did bring him up in our conversation today.
I will bring that up, number one. Number two, I got to pull off the suits as well as you do on the MLB Network. I love it. You're looking great. You're looking spiffy. You're ready to go. But explain this to me, Steve Phillips. Why do the Yankees go through these swoons every single year? I get it. It's 162 games. I get it. You're going to have a bad stretch of baseball. But to look like this, and I know Aaron Judge is not playing, Steve, I feel like I'm having the same conversation with the Yankees year after year after year.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that when we follow a certain team, we experience what it's like for them, year after year. But the reality is every other fan base feels the same way about their team. I do a lot of, local shows in different cities, in baseball cities, and they all have the same thing. They all go through it every year, and it's just the nature of this game. Now, this year for the Yankees, I think that look, you lose Aaron Judge, who's, not only your number 2 hitter and a big power bat, but one of the best players, if not the best player in the game. Then you lose Stanton, your number 4 hitter. Then at some point they lost McMahon, their number 7 hitter. Then Jazz missed a couple games, your number, 5 hitter. Then, you've got Goldschmidt now who's gone into a bit of a slump, but, the Wells, the catcher, was hurt. So that, they've had so many different things that have gone on. But the bottom line is, when you have a superstar player around which you build, when that guy is out, you are a different team. And, the offense has just gone cold. Right when Judge went down, at one point they were 12-8 without Judge. And then it really has cooled off since then. They were like 4-14 or something like that after that start where they were playing some better baseball. But, they're lacking significant offense right now. And you don't build a roster that has a backup for Aaron Judge. You don't have it. And so when that guy goes down, you need other people to produce and deliver. And what you can't do is start to play poor fundamental defensive baseball. And that's what's happened. I mean, the number of unearned runs that they've given up over the last 16, 17 games is like 29, 30 unearned runs. It's effectively spotting the other team 2 runs per game and saying, okay, now we're ready. We're going to go get you. You're chasing your tail all the time, and that's where they have found themselves.
Totally fair. And look, they're going to get Judge back. They're going to make the postseason, but they're all in. They need an all-in move. Scooble's the name that's being thrown out there the most, Steve. That said, if they get Fried back and they get Rodon back, I like their rotation going into October. If it's not Tarek Skubal, give me another all-in type move Cashman and the 2026 Yankees could potentially make.
Yeah, I don't think it is Skubal. I think it's Mason Miller. I think they have to go to San Diego. The Padres desperately need starting pitching, and they desperately need outfield offensive production. Okay, well, you've got, with Fried coming back, and at some point Clark Schmidt coming back, you're going to have Weathers and or Wells that could be moved, along with Dominguez and or Spencer Jones in a deal. And if you have to throw in Elmer Rodriguez, but if I can get Mason Miller at the end of the game and move everybody else up a spot, Bedard into the 8th inning, or Bednar into the 8th inning, and Duvall and others into the 7th, and Cruz into the 7th and 6th, then you protect your starting pitching. You can handle any matchup and situation. You've got a lockdown 9th inning guy, and you're not really hurting yourself in any significant way if you trade away those pieces, because you've got better pieces on your roster that aren't going to be a factor in the postseason. Like, well, the likelihood is that Warren is not going to pitch Wells is not going to pitch Warren's not going to pitch in the postseason. Sorry, in the rotation. So you've got other options where you can go there. I think that Mason Miller is the go-to move.
I absolutely love it. I mean, he's the best reliever in the sport. He's under team control. Sign me up right now. Okay, Steve. Skubal. I made the case at the start of the show. I get it. He's the player from a rotation standpoint that could alter a whole lot. If you're Milwaukee, you put him with Mizorowski. If you're Dombrowski and the all-in Phillies, you put him with Sanchez and Wheeler. Tampa Bay says, hey, we're going for it over the final 2 months. We'll make a move of that magnitude. Is there any chance, though, the Tigers, who had a terrible, terrible May where everything went wrong, aside from that, they're in a wide-open division. Cleveland has their problems. Are the White Sox ready to win yet? Is there any chance the Tigers play well here over the next 2 weeks and say, you know what, the hell with that, we're going to try and keep them and try to win the division?
Oh, I think there's still a chance. Sure, they've won 7 of 8. They've won 4 in a row. They're 8 games under 500, but they're only 4 games out of the 3rd wild card spot right now. So, yes, I think if they play well going into the All-Star break and come out of it playing their best baseball, then 100% I think they could look at it and think, let's go for this thing. And, we've invested to be all in this year. Let's go all in and try to make a run, and let's try to buy instead of sell. And so I think it's too soon to tell. So with so many of these teams, it's going to come down to, like in college basketball and even the NBA sometimes, whoever comes out at the start of the 3rd quarter ends up winning a game, right? After halftime, whoever comes out, gets off to that good start, they make their run, they can hold somebody off. it feels like that's what the baseball season is going to turn into. Coming out of the All-Star break, those first 10 days out of the break are going to be so critical because they're going to define who's in, who's out, how they're looking at themselves, which direction they're moving. And so I think it's going to be a later developing trade market. There might be some teams that are obviously buyers and some teams who are obviously sellers that maybe they can match up. But if I'm a seller, I might wait a little bit just to be able to create some pressure and have some, because the demand should significantly outweigh the supply, which could mean the return, the price point will be more significant for the seller. And so I think that, I think Detroit certainly can be a buyer in the end and get back into this race.
Steve Phillips, former GM. Check him out on SiriusXM, MLB Network Radio, of course, on the MLB Network. Steve, let's just live in a world, though, where Skubal gets dealt. Gut, Milwaukee, Philly, Dodgers. I don't see him with the Yankees. If he's moved, what do you think is the best fit?
I think the Cubs. The Cubs really need to get some starting pitching. You know, they're going to be a playoff team. But they have just not had the kind of starting pitching that they need. I think the Cubs could look. It's certainly a Dombrowski move in Philadelphia. It's, Dave Love stars. I could see him doing it. Atlanta could absolutely use Skubal to go up front with Sale in that rotation and make a difference. And Alex Anthopoulos has made big moves at the deadline before, adding David Price and Troy Tulowitzki in the past. And so you could find any number of teams. Milwaukee would be a great place to go. Tampa Bay would be a great place to go. Put them up there with McClanahan or Rasmussen in the rotation. I think that they're going to be players in it. I do. I think Tampa Bay's going to get in. I think the Cubs, though, are the team that really needs to do it. I think Jed Hoyer really needs to make the big move for Skubal and to get that fan base re-engaged in a way that they believe in this team to make a run in the postseason.
Steve, it's interesting. I thought the Red Sox a few weeks ago were like a surefire, guaranteed seller. They swept the Yankees, and they've been really, really good the last few weeks. Their pitching has been outstanding. I know you mentioned some of these sellers are going to wait as long as possible, deadline a little later this year. Has the calculus changed at all in Boston or not necessarily?
I don't think so, because it's not only that sure they're playing better, but how many teams are in front of them still? And how many teams will they have to jump in order to get to a playoff spot? So as it stands now, I would expect them to sell. Now, again, if they get really hot and rattle off 10 out of 12, then maybe that changes the dynamic a little bit. But I'm with you. Their starting pitching's been good. They've started to get the Sigler kid and Caleb Durbin at third have started to give them some offensive production there. But I just don't see enough offense from them, enough power from them to be able to get it going. And so I think that in the long run, I think they're going to be on the outside looking in and likely making the deal to be a seller.
Steve, I'm in New York. The Mets have been an absolute disaster on so many different fronts, on so many different levels. They fired their manager a couple of weeks ago, and they're one of the obvious. They're going to be sellers, whether it's Freddie Peralta, the arms in the bullpen, Robert when he comes back. But there's a bigger picture conversation. I've been spending a lot of time on it. This whole dynamic between Soto and Lindor. Is it to a point where the Mets have got to have a conversation with Francisco Lindor, or is that totally overblown? Because, there's also an argument to be made that, hey, if you have better dynamics within your clubhouse and you bring in veterans that could kind of get those guys to come together. I mean, you've been running teams. I'm sure you could find guys in clubhouses that don't like one another, but if they're performing and you're winning, it's not nearly as big a story. Is the Lindor-Soto dynamic to a point where the Mets have got to say enough is enough?
Well, I think I guess they've tried to address it, but this would be a major priority for me. That the reality is, I'm not trading Soto. It's an immovable contract, and I don't think that Lindor is probably a movable contract right now. So we're sort of stuck together, and winning cures all ills, right? That if you start to win, you can figure it out. Their issue is not chemistry on this team; it's talent. They're not a good enough team to be able to win. And so certainly you can get more out of a lesser team when guys are pulling together, rowing in the same direction, but you're not going to turn it into a playoff team. And so they're a bit of a mess on the roster that needs to be reconfigured. In the meantime, enough is enough of this nonsense. Like, if somebody kept making a big deal out of me having a problem with somebody else, at some point I'd sit down, listen, we got to try to find a way to make this work. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to ever run in again. Look, Bobby Valentine and I did not always see eye to eye when he was the manager and I was the general manager, but we would always find ways to regroup and try to, start over again in the relationship and start to build. And if something would happen, and we'd have to start to go over again. But you've got to find a commitment to do that, because you understand that it's in the best interest of the team for everybody to be locked in step with each other. So, they're proud guys, and, maybe one guy doesn't want to be the one who sort of kowtows to the other, but at some point they've got to find a way to coexist. And if it has to be forced, I would force it from the top, from ownership, from the front office, from the manager, but it's got to happen.
Steve, final one. National League, you know the deal. Dodgers going for the three-peat, trying to do it for the first time since the Yankees, 98, 99, 2000. They're even money to go and win the National League. Milwaukee with the Miz, they're the second favorite. Then you got the Braves and the Phillies. I look at the Phillies, and I know they lost to the Dodgers in 4 games last year. You got all those future Hall of Famers in the lineup. Schwarber, Harper, Marsh is having a monster year. You got the 1-2 punch of Sanchez and Wheeler. I'd make the argument they're the biggest threats to the Dodgers within the National League. Are you on the same page, or are you looking at somebody different?
I think Milwaukee probably is. The only thing about Milwaukee is, they're 5th in runs scored and they're 28th in home runs. And, the currency of offense in the postseason is home runs. The number of times that the Brewers put up a crooked number in an inning offensively and don't hit a home run, it's unbelievable how they're able to do it. They find ways to link hits together in innings that other teams don't. Like, for another team, it's a bloop and a bomb, and you get a crooked number up, right? You get a 2 spot up on the scoreboard. For the Brewers, it's 4 singles, and guys taking extra bases and advancing on an out, and sometimes in the playoffs, it's hard to get 4 singles when you're facing some of those pitchers. Now, they do have some power this year. I mean, Churio and Yelich can swing, and Bowers has had some power. William Contreras has hit some home runs, but they could probably use a power bat in the mix and another pitcher. But I like their bullpen. I like their manager. I think that probably Milwaukee is the biggest threat. But I'm with you on Philadelphia. I keep wondering if something's missing in that group, and we'll see what Dave Dombrowski brings in at the deadline. And I think Atlanta is also a team that if they could add a starting pitcher at the front, they could become a much scarier team too, because Sale's a tough matchup for anybody. And if you get another ace, they get a Struble, that could make a tremendous difference for them.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Steve, I'm just a sucker for the Mattingly narrative, though, man. I can't get enough. The guy never thought he'd manage again. His son's in the front office. Now he's got this loaded, fun team in Philadelphia. I can't get enough of this, man. Donnie Baseball's back.
Yeah, it's a great story. And he's such a good guy. I haven't gotten to know him over the years. And, he was going to be done, and he was going to stay home with his younger son. And then his son called and asked if he wanted to coach, and he did. Next thing you know, he's managing. And it's not because Don Mattingly's a better manager than Rob Thompson. Because oftentimes when you change managers, you go from the even keel, steady guy to the more abrupt guy, right? You go to a Dallas Green or a Lou Piniella. But, Don Mattingly's demeanor is much like Rob Thompson. He's more understated. It's just the team woke up a little bit under Donnie Baseball. But I'm so happy for him and for Preston. What a nice dynamic for their relationship, because that's always dicey, man. The marriage is nice and the storyline's great, but what if you have to fire your dad? How do you manage that one with it? And, and then many of us are thinking to ourselves, that wouldn't be the worst thing to have to do. To be able to be in a spot we get to fire our father along the way. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but it is one of the best storylines of the year.
Steve, you're the best, man. Give Dog hell. Appreciate a few minutes, and we'll be watching and hit him straight, okay? Make sure you hit him straight.
All right, JJ. Thanks so much.
There you have it. That's Steve Phillips, MLB Network, Sirius XM, MLB Network Radio. When we come back, Justin Verlander is going to the All-Star game. It's a swan song for Justin Verlander. So where's he ranking? My all-time starters, going back to my lifetime in 1988. He cracking the top 5. We'll dive into that. We got a lot more to do right here. You better you bet. JJ in for Nick Kostos.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I jumped the gun. What else is new? Welcome back to You Better You Bet. It is John Jastremski in for my dude, the great Nick Kostos, right here on Westwood One Sports, presented by our friends over at MGM. And this segment is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small business with affordable coverage options. Quote today at progressivecommercial.com. Now, I did not give this guy the properties because, of course, idiot number one screwed up the rundown, and I was thinking this was coming up in 20 minutes, but he is ready to go, and he's ready to join us right now on all things World Cup. It has been juicy. It has been exciting. I am bummed the United States is done, but I need winners. Who better than my longtime pal at the Ringer? He's been killing it over the last few weeks, Anthony DeBundo. Buddy boy, it's a pleasure. Did you enjoy your day off? First things first.
I did. I got some extra sleep. I got some laundry done. I got some errands around town, got my hair cut. Really did need that day, but also the whole time I was just thinking, man, I wish there was a soccer game on right now.
Well, you were the Pablo Escobar meme. That's what you were. I saw Escobar, waiting for his soccer, was circulating all over the internet. You really should have superimposed Anthony DeBundo instead of the meme from Narcos, and you would have had success. I want to start here. United States was hopeful they'd find their way to the round of 8, was hoping and praying we get this matchup against Spain. It doesn't happen. Total dud against Belgium. Does it tarnish the goodwill in getting to the round of 16? Do you feel satisfied with what you saw from their World Cup performance? Now that the dust is kind of settled here with Team USA, what is the final verdict?
Yeah, I think everybody's just kind of baking in their priors and confirming their priors a little bit too much. I think it's very easy now that they won some games and then lost in the round they usually lose in when they get to this point to say that, yes, the U.S. always loses in the round of 16. They can't break through. This World Cup is just the same as it's always been. I think that is way too convenient of a narrative. And I think anybody who watched this team, the first 3 matches that counted, saw a different version of the U.S. men's national team that we have never seen before. And I think that cannot just be thrown out the window because they completely blew it and completely imploded and honestly were self-destructive on Monday night against Belgium. And so I come into it saying, it's still a par World Cup. I don't think you can throw away all of the goodwill you built up just because of one game. However, it definitely stings because it confirms everything that the haters say about the U.S. from outside this country, that we'll never make it as a soccer nation. It confirms everything that the haters of soccer say about us from inside this country. The people who only watch soccer every few years now have all these takes about how we can't make it and we can't. So it is very frustrating because, again, there is clear progress. 2018, the U.S. did not qualify for the World Cup. 2022, they barely grinded through the group stage with 2 goals scored in 3 games and then got dispatched by the Dutch. This was a different World Cup. And I know that we all wanted a more competitive game. We all wanted to beat Belgium. We were favored against Belgium, by the way. People bet millions of dollars on these games, said we were even with or better than Belgium. So the fact that it didn't work sucks, but I don't think it should be a full indictment of everything this team did.
Totally fair. Okay, I want to do a little cross-sport comparison with you because you are an astute historian of all things. You love to talk all sports. You love to bet all sports. Is the 28-3 Atlanta, New England a fair reflection of Egypt and Argentina from the other day, or is that too overdramatic?
I think Tom was being a little dramatic on Twitter, honestly. Now, if it had happened in the final, different story, right? Like last World Cup 4 years ago, famously, France down 2-0. They come back, and they came within about a foot of winning the game 4-3 in extra time. That, to me, would have been very 28-3-esque because France comes back down 2 goals with 15 minutes left. But against Egypt in the round of 16, I don't think so. It felt very Chiefs-Colts. Andrew Luck leads the Colts back from 38-10 down against the Chiefs. That's how it felt to me.
That's a good pull right there. And not a game I wanted brought up on this show because I may have bet the Kansas City Chiefs in that particular wildcard game. So thank you for that in advance, Anthony DeBundo. I appreciate it. I know that was a glorious moment for you as an Indianapolis Colts guy, but I digress. France, Morocco. Morocco's been good to a whole lot of people. I know you had them against the Netherlands, which I was not happy about because that game was excruciating. I may have had a future on the Dutch to go and win this thing, but be that as it may, Morocco's had vibes. They've been tremendous throughout this World Cup. What's their pathway of keeping this game competitive against the French?
So they lose Ismail Saibari, who's been their best striker at this tournament. He's the guy who is the threat in behind, the transition player that can really create on the break. Now, in this matchup against France, France basically makes the bet that they're not going to press and they're going to deny transition and they're going to be very safe out of possession. They're going to let you have the ball if you want it. And most teams won't take that risk against France, but Morocco has the midfield quality. They have the possession passing ability to do this. And, I think Morocco played really well their first 4 matches, right? They went toe-to-toe with Brazil. They were even in that match. They went toe-to-toe with the Dutch. They were better than the Dutch, I thought, in that match. And then they get to this Canada game and they really stunk. Like, they were awful, especially the first hour against Canada. It's just a totally different matchup that I'm not really sure that matters that much. Like, Canada is the ultimate chaos, frenetic team. They really bothered Morocco with their press. France is not going to do any of that. It's a totally different stylistic situation. And this team is still pretty good defensively. They can still counter. And I think the biggest key here, though, is like, how much is France going to want to get the ball off Morocco? Because if Morocco gets the ball, they win the possession back, and then they settle it and try to play a little of their stuff in their own half, and they wait for their opportunities to play those direct passes. Like, they can definitely threaten France here. And I think they're a little undervalued to score. And like, both teams to score is even money. Them to score first half plus 250. Like, I think both are a little cheap because, again, like, France's defense at this tournament has been fine, but it hasn't been France. It hasn't been anywhere near what they've been in attack. It hasn't been anywhere near what Spain's been defensively in this tournament. It hasn't been even what Argentina was during the group stage before they've had some cracks. So I think there's still some questions about this French defense.
We got the great Anthony Tabundo, my pal, the ringer. He's been killing the World Cup coverage over the last few weeks. Okay, AD. Give me the quarterfinal and the result in a quarterfinal that's feasible, that's possible, that's live, that you believe could really upset the apple cart as far as chaos is concerned. Is there one particular matchup maybe that you have circled that could upset a whole lot of chalk?
Switzerland, certainly. They are not fully healthy, which I think is probably their biggest problem. They looked great their first 4 matches. Then they really struggled through that game against Colombia. They got through, got a little lucky, won on penalties. But the main thing is, like, is Manzambi going to be able to play? Because Johan Manzambi's been their best player at this tournament. He has 3 goals already, a couple of assists. He come off the bench. Then he forced his way to the starting lineup. Then he gets hurt. Ruben Vargas, who's probably been their second best attacking player in terms of creativity, he only played a half hour against Colombia because he came off the bench and he wasn't fully fit to start. So you start to wonder, like, what is this Swiss attack without those 2 guys? It's not much. So you're like, oh, they might be drawing dead against Argentina. But, like, I'll take you through the Swiss. Like, the last 3 international tournaments, they've been really in the mix. Like Euro 2024, they tie Germany in the group, come in second in that group. They thrash Italy. They tie England and lose on penalties at the quarterfinals. So, like, they've gone toe-to-toe with the big boys and not been outclassed. They've been competitive. They're very capable defensively. They're good in possession. They're good midfield. Attack's just okay. At the last World Cup, like, they were right there in their group as well. Then they get thrashed by Portugal, right? So you're like, all right, well, that's not a great result, but they still played almost even with Brazil over 90 minutes, and that was a better Brazil team. Euro 2021, they beat France in a shootout and then lost to Spain in a shootout, right? So they've gone toe-to-toe over the last 5 years, and it's been like the same core with all of the big teams in the world, pretty much. So why can't they do it to Argentina? And, like, Argentina has shown plenty of cracks against worse teams in the last 2 games. So I think the Swiss are live, plus 250. I think they're the most likely team to pull off an upset. England, France, Spain, Argentina seem to be on a collision course for the semis. I think the most likely upset is the Swiss.
Fair enough. You mentioned England. They had that dramatic win, Estadio Azteca, against Team Mexico. Is that the sort of breakthrough moment, AD, that could possibly take the Team England to a different level? Obviously, they've had their demons in this World Cup. It doesn't take resident soccer expert John Jastremski a whole lot to figure that out. That's just been a narrative. That's been a subplot that has followed Team England. Did you look at that as a breakthrough, or is that more of a one-off performance?
I think it's certainly a breakthrough in getting everybody to believe what the analytics have always said about this team, which is that they are absolutely a World Cup contender and should be one of the 3 favorites to win the trophy. And yeah, you go on the road and you win, like they had to win like 3 different games in the Azteca. Like you have to survive the first 20 minutes when Mexico gets shot out of a cannon and is just onslaughting with pressure and the crowd is crazy. Then you have to survive the middle period where you give away a penalty, you get a red card, you get a penalty. And then you have to survive the rear guard action of having to defend with 10 and just boxing yourself in and saying, for this 20 minutes, we have to keep a goal out because if we allow a goal, we're completely cooked. Like we have no chance. If they go and tie the game and now they're up a man and we got to defend another half hour and our guys are starting to go and the altitude and the legs are going, like they were in big trouble there if they conceded. So for them to hold on like that, Pickford punching crosses, Burn blocking overhead kicks, like they really do feel like they've come together in that moment. And again, they've had a lot of adversity. They were down to Congo for an hour, right? So they faced elite goalies, guys who aren't even elite going standing on their head like the DR Congo goalie was in the first round. So this English team, to me, matches up really well with Norway and should be able to just strangle the game and overwhelm a Norwegian defense that I don't think is very good. But I do think they should be the favorite to make the final on that half of the bracket. Now, beating Spain and France is a different challenge, but I think they're the 3rd best team right now.
Okay, AD, who's winning this thing?
Well, I'm supposed to say France. The market says I should say France. Everybody who watches them says I should say France. People tell me France. I have never wavered from my position that Spain is the best team in this tournament. And it's not because they're the sexiest team. It's not because they're going to put 3 on everybody. Certainly, Lamine Yamal has not yet found that peak form. And again, he's running out of time to do it because Spain and France are on a collision course for the semifinals next Tuesday. It'll be Bastille Day in France too. So could be a real major win or like a double whammy if they lose. I still think Spain matches up well with France because 1, their midfield is better. They can press, they can possess the ball, they can keep away from France, they can make France's life difficult. And I have to go with some recent history here. France lost to Spain in the semifinals of Euro 2024. France lost to Spain in the semifinals of Nations League 2025. And the same pattern emerged in both matches. So maybe France, with Olise playing as well as he is right now, which is a different level than he was last year, and he was not on the Euro team 2 years ago. So maybe he's the difference maker. Maybe he puts France over the top. But we've seen Spain have enough success, and we know the betting odds are going to say that France is going to be the favorite in that match. I'm willing to bet Spain as a dog. I think they're going to win this, and I think it's going to be the story of their defense being just smothering.
Well, considering the fact that my 2 futures are dead and buried, because
Who'd
I
you have, the
side
Dutch
with
and who else?
the Dutch and Portugal, 2 losers.
Oh, JJ, why didn't you call
Portugal
me
was
for
a
the
bad
tournament?
bet. It was a bad bet. It happens. The
He
Dutch I
did
felt good
not
about,
read
though.
my Ringer preview where I
No, I
slandered both
did, but
teams.
I chose to take. No, I did. I chose to take sides against the family.
Ugh.
That's the problem. I do trust you. I do believe in you, but I didn't play you blindly. I had to go and take a couple of hunches, AD.
Yeah,
you
that's fair.
needed to at least get 1 or 2 plays from resident soccer expert John Jastremski. Come on now. Like, I got to
If
be
the
a man of
Dutch had a
principle.
better coach, they might have. But now
Too little, too late, as far as I'm concerned. Now, before we say goodbye, I'm giving you door number 1 and door number 2. You get the opportunity on my dime because I love you so much. I'm going to put this in on your behalf to make a bet. With Anthony DeBundo and John Jastremski will take one of these 2 bets with you if you choose wisely. The other one I'm absolutely not taking with you. But it's your money, or it's my money that you will get to invest in. Would you rather bet the Philadelphia Phillies to win a pennant? Or, good sir, would you rather bet the Philadelphia 76ers to win the Eastern Conference? The choice is yours.
This is an easy one. Phillies to win the pennant.
There you go. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm so
Wheeler and
happy you made
Sanchez
that
show
choice.
up for the playoffs. They're going to be in the mix.
I'm so happy
That's
you
all
made
you
that choice. And even though I thought there was a possibility because the number is a little juicier, maybe not much juicier for the Philadelphia 76ers that you might go there. But I think you realize that Joel Embiid is still on the Sixers. Now, one more counter to that. If LeBron ends up with the Sixers, obviously that number will not be the same. Would that change the calculus for you?
There are so many interesting teams in the East. I mean, I don't follow NBA as closely as you do and everybody else, but like to me, the whole conference is like 10 deep now.
It's
That's
juicy.
the scary thing for me. It's going to be hard to be like a top seed. And then, yeah, it still comes down to like, can Joel Embiid have 2 straight healthy months in the playoffs? Probably not. And then like, what's the size without him? It's like nothing. So that's a problem. I feel like that would be a flaw. But you know what? They're going to be a much better regular season team with Jaylen Brown. So I'm excited to get down to the Xfinity Mobile Arena and catch some games this year and not have to watch just a complete scrub list of backups plus Tyrese Maxey try to go win basketball games. So it'll be fun.
AD, appreciate a few minutes. I'll see you in Philadelphia next week and get on board the Mattingly bandwagon, baby. Get on board. Come on.
I'm trying. I think they're gonna win the division, but I don't know. The Dodgers are still the Dodgers.
I get it. Anthony DeBundo, check him out. Outstanding stuff on the Ringer Gambling Show and, of course, covering all things World Cup. When we come back, 3 buys, 3 sells in the NFL for 2026. That's coming your way. And Justin Verlander's calling it a career. First ballot Hall of Famer, no question. Is he a top 5 pitcher I've seen in my lifetime? We'll dive into that coming up next.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Can't cut off our beautiful voiceover right there. Come on now. It's You Better You Bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos right here on Westwood One Sports. Get an early payout for a 2-goal lead. Place a pregame bet on any World's Game match. If your team takes a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours regardless of the outcome of the game. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. So we kick off our final hour of the show. It's never too early to start dreaming about the 2026 NFL season. And I did mention that my week of vacation, which will be the last week in July, it's where I really get in the lab. It might be a cocktail in hand. It used to be like the old school magazine. Back in the day, it was a newspaper. Now, I don't even bring the iPad to the beach. It's just too much work. It's too much slugging, schlepping, the whole deal. So it's literally me reading on the phone. I get out of the water. Otherwise, I get bored at the beach. I love being at the beach. I have like a 3-hour time limit of being at the beach. That's usually like the shelf life for me because then I get absolutely roasted. It's just, I went in the water. I sat in the sand. I read a little bit. I'm good. But that is where those moments of, hey, full-fledged NFL research are going to come to this little pea brain. And hopefully we'll have a whole lot of success. We were all over the Washington Commanders as a sell team a year ago. Unfortunately, we had the Patriots as a sell team as well. So we ended up batting 50. You bat 500 with the futures. If you have some plus money thrown in there, it's well worth it. It's well worth it. Now, there was some news yesterday. Justin Verlander's announced to the All-Star team. And he's like the honorary pick. He's like the commissioner's pick because this is going to be the final season of Justin Verlander's career. And Justin Verlander's had an outstanding first ballot Hall of Fame type of career. Most of his tenure with the Detroit Tigers, obviously won a couple of championships with the Houston Astros, won a couple of Cy Youngs along the way, won an MVP. Don't want to forget about that. Verlander had me thinking, okay, I have been a baseball fan since what? 1994, 1995, coming of age. I'm 38 years old. So I can't give you Nolan Ryan. I can't give you Tom Seaver. But I wanted to look at this like objectively. In my years of being a baseball fan, who would crack the top 10 all-time starters that I've seen? And where would Justin Verlander fit on that list? Well, after sitting down, after kind of putting it all together, he falls short of the top 5. I could not put him in the top 5. And I'm going to work my way from 1 down to 10. And I think my answers for a couple of these are going to surprise you because my number one pitcher that I've seen in my lifetime, again, not throwing a great Mariano Rivera in there because we excluded relief pitchers. Starting pitchers. The most dominant, the most impressive starting pitcher of my lifetime, without question, is Pedro Martinez. And I know he does not have the longevity that you're going to get from a Clemens, that you're going to get from a Greg Maddux or a Randy Johnson. But the bottom line is this. At the peak of their prowess, was there ever a starter better than 99, 2000 Pedro Martinez? The answer to that question for me is no. So I am going to take that. I am going to supersede that over any of the longevity factors that you could throw into the equation. Pedro was always going to have that top spot for me. And the numbers aren't going to back it up, but the eye test is going to back it up. And it's coming from somebody that absolutely detested Pedro Martinez when he pitched for the Boston Red Sox. So I think it shows you I'm giving you an element of fair and balanced and reasonable all in the same sentence. So I am putting Pedro in that top spot. Now, I don't want to hear about steroids. I don't care about steroids. 2, 3, and 4, I think you're splitting hairs, honestly, between these three guys. I have Clemens in the 2 spot. I then put Randy Johnson 3rd, and then I put Greg Maddux 4th. Is there a case to be made that Randy Johnson could be ahead of Roger Clemens? Potentially. And I did dock those guys a little bit because there were some shady postseason moments for all of them. Roger Clemens had plenty of postseason duds. Randy Johnson, despite the 2001 World Series winning co-MVP with Kurt Schilling, They're World Series studs. I mean, they're all, listen, Clemens is a 7-time Cy Young. He's got MVP. Randy Johnson was a 10-time Cy Young at 5 Cy Youngs. But 10-time All-Star, 5 Cy Youngs. And Maddox was an 8-time All-Star, 4 Cy Youngs. So they all had a different craft about the way they went about their business. All dominant nonetheless. So I think that top 4 is really tough to crack. 5, I went with Roy Halladay. And he didn't have the longevity that Verlander put together, that Clayton Kershaw put together. I docked Clayton Kershaw. Because how many times did I watch Clayton Kershaw go and basically wet the bed in every postseason and every World Series start that you saw him pitch? Like, I'm penalizing him for that. I saw Roy Halladay go and throw a freaking no-hitter in a playoff game. Roy Halladay, who won multiple Cy Youngs, who, from an eye test standpoint, wowed me in many ways, more so than a guy like Justin Verlander. So my top 5, Pedro, Clemens, Johnson, Maddox, Halladay. Now, where does Verlander fit in? I had him right below Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw, better regular season pitcher. Verlander, better in the postseason. Verlander's ahead of Scherzer. Scherzer's got a really good resume. He doesn't have an MVP. He doesn't have multiple championships. And there's a great rivalry between those two guys. So that was close. Verlander, Scherzer. And then I rounded out my list. 9th on my list was John Smoltz. He's got to be there. All-time great postseason performer. Starter, reliever. Brilliant, brilliant pitcher. And 10, I didn't go with Tom Glavine. Maybe this is the Yankee homer in me talking. I put CC Sabathia there because of what he did in 2008 for the Milwaukee Brewers. Then you throw in the fact that he goes to the Yankees in his first year and he wins a Cy Young. Sorry, Tom Glavine, you're on the outside looking in. When we come back, final hour, you better, you bet. I sell. 2026 NFL season, 3 for each. I feel really, really good about these. Hopefully my futures accounts will indicate as such. We're coming right back.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Yeah, we've reached the final hour. It is You Better You Bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos, holding the fort down right here on Westwood One Sports, presented by our friends over at BetMGM. And I've been waiting all show to do this because you can never have enough NFL in your life. Like, I'm chomping at the bit. The crew is chomping at the bit. We're going to see if I take my new friends off, because despite the fact that the full complement of research is not fully done, we're not all the way there yet on what is today's date, July the 9th. I want to make sure we don't screw it up. The days kind of blend together when you're dealing with the summer months. July 9th, for those of you keeping score at home, to get my 3 must-buys and my 3 must-sells for the 2026 season. And I will admit, one of these teams, there is going to be a feeling of, really, bro? You're going there again with this group after what you've seen each of the last 2 years? And what is the team I'm referencing right out of the gate? That happens to be Mr. Aloe, Joe Burrow. That happens to be Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Chase Brown and all of the firepower and all of the star fantasy prowess material that the Cincinnati Bengals bring to the table that has not necessarily equated to a whole lot of victories over the last 2 years. So I think there is a fair sentiment within the audience that would say, JJ, explain this to me, buddy boy. Why is it going to be different for Cincinnati this time around in 2026? Can I give you 2 reasons? Number one, the Bengals are a much improved defensive team. Much improved. I am not saying that Dexter Lawrence is the be-all, end-all. They did not add Myles Garrett. They did not add Lawrence Taylor in their prime. But for a team that was in dire need of an elite-level player to come onto their defense, to anchor stopping the run, which is something that destroyed them throughout the course of last season, Dexter Lawrence is going to do exactly that. The schedule sets up in a way for Cincinnati not finishing in first place, not finishing in second place. Get a couple of easier games. That's going to inflate the win total a little bit. And I want you to understand, you get a guy when he plays a quarterback in Joe Burrow, that's one of the best that football has to offer. There's no debating that. When Joe Burrow plays, he performs. They get off to slow starts. They know they get off to slow starts. Joe Burrow has gotten hurt. But if you can weather the storm early, keep Burrow on the field, don't bury yourself in the month of September with a Cleveland team rebuilding. We know that. A Pittsburgh team that is clearly on their last legs, which we will get to later on, trying to reunite Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, 2010 is not walking through that door. I'm not the biggest Zach Taylor fan. Has he taken a team to the Super Bowl? He has. Has he won games in the playoffs? He has. I'm buying Cincinnati. They will be a playoff team. They will win double-digit games. They will be heard from in the month of January. That's team number 1. Team number 2 that we are looking to buy. And this one bothers me a little bit because I know there's always public sentiment with this team. And I have to admit, traditionally, I'm never on board with this group. I'm never a believer in this group. Because in many ways, the juice ultimately is never worth the squeeze with the Dallas Cowboys. That said, oh baby, how about those Cowboys? How about those Cowboys in 2026? Believe it, they're winning the NFC East. Philadelphia's situation, to me, has now gotten to a point of absurd. And what do I mean by that? A.J. Brown out. You thinking the circus is going to die down in Philadelphia? I don't think so. Nick Sirianni is still there. who, by the way, with a Super Bowl is still one of the most overrated coaches in the league. And all you need to know about Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles, and I love Howie Roseman, one of the best executives in sports. There's no denying that. He has seen teams blow up from time to time. We saw with the Eagles a couple of years ago. He had to go and blow up a team a few years back after winning. So, like, this is not uncharted waters for Philadelphia. I think there is that combustibility type of element within their team. And my point on Sirianni stands. Like, he won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2. Would you want him as a top? Like, is he a top 10 coach in the sport? He is not. Like, if you're telling me right now, would you rather have Kyle Shanahan, who hasn't won a Super Bowl, or Nick Sirianni coaching your team? You decide. I know he's had some issues and some extracurriculars off the field, but Mike Vrabel, who's not won a Super Bowl, or Nick Sirianni, who would you rather have coaching your team? I mean, honest question. Is anybody telling me to rather have Nick Sirianni coaching their team? I don't think so. But, JJ, get me to Dallas. You don't like Philadelphia? Fine. Why do you like Dallas? Their offense is elite. I think it's elite. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Ferguson at tight end. Dak Prescott. There are questions about January Dak Prescott. To me, there are not questions about September to December Dak Prescott. That guy's really, really good. That guy willed a team that had absolutely, positively nothing to work with on the defensive side of the ball, basically into the playoff race in a very loaded, very difficult NFC just a year ago. I don't think the defense is great. I think it's going to be significantly improved. Full season of Quinnen Williams anchoring that defensive line. Adding my favorite player in the draft without question in Caleb Downs, which to me, I'd still be dancing some more if I were in Dallas with the idea that he fell to me in the draft. Thank you for cooperating, Miami Dolphins, who weren't at a point in their franchise at the moment where they're like, yeah, we can take a safety because we got 10 zillion needs to fill. I get that. You take advantage of that if you're Dallas. The New York Giants had 2 first-round picks and did not make Caleb Downs one of their first 2 first-round picks. I think that'll end up being a costly decision. That guy just oozes intangibles. That guy just oozes playmaking on that side of the ball. That's been lacking for Dallas. Dallas will win double-digit games. Dallas may have the same problems come playoff time. That's not the feature of our buy-sell segment, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's about getting to the playoffs. It's about winning double-digit games. I'm in on the Dallas Cowboys. Shoddy, baby. No Eberflus. What a loser. Don't got to deal with that. 2 down, 1 to go. Now, this is where I might lose you. Because there's some sexiness with the Bengals. There's always sexiness with the Cowboys. I can't believe I'm about to do what I'm about to do. You want to know why? I'm a New Yorker, as you know. I lived through the Bobby Saleh New York Jets era. I lived through the Brian Daboll New York Giants era, where I thought for sure the Giants had their head coach. He's going for it, going for 2 in his first game against the Tennessee Titans a few years ago. Goes to the playoffs with Daniel Jones. I'm like, wins a playoff game with Daniel Jones. I'm like, wow, the Giants got a coach. From that point forward, they were comically bad, absurdly bad, unwatchable on so many different fronts, on so many different levels. I say all of that because your boy, John Jastremski, can't freaking wait to go and get on board with Bobby Saleh and Brian Daboll and the Tennessee Titans to go and be a buy in 2026. I'm betting they're over for wins. I'm going to sprinkle them to make the postseason. And I may be dumb enough to go and bet them a little under 9-1 to go and win the AFC South. I think the second time around for Saleh will be different as a head coach. He's got a good offensive coordinator. He's got a really talented quarterback. Cam Ward can play. The glimpses, the flashes, they were there in his first season. He had nothing to work with. Titans spent a ton of money in free agency. I think Dable gives them a baseline of confidence as far as what he can do as an offensive coordinator. And defensively, I think they're going to look totally different under Saleh. Totally different under Saleh. And it's the division to go and buy opportunity. Are you ready to be all in on the Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm not. Now, I love me the Houston Texans and what they do defensively. I want to remind everybody, CJ Stroud put together two of the worst playoff games I think I've ever seen a quarterback play. One was in a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers where I had way too much money on the Houston Texans to go win that game on that wild card Monday. And I was basically pacing through the apartment in Brooklyn as I'm watching him not put the Steelers away until Fuki play in the fourth quarter. And then the following week in New England is 3 hours of my life I'd like to have back. And I saw my Texans futures, my AFC future, my Super Bowl future all get flushed down a Foxborough Stadium toilet. It was not pleasant. It was not ideal. Maybe there's vulnerability there. There easily could be vulnerability there within that offense and that team maybe adding on a little bit of age. The Colts, they went all in. Are you sure you want to go all in with Daniel Jones as your quarterback when he doesn't play and he's basically only given you about 8 games of elite level quarterback performance? I think from a sky's the limit quarterback ceiling perspective, Ward has multiple different layers of elite offensive football that he has not hit yet. And maybe he has just barely scratched the surface. We've seen a lot of these quarterbacks in the second year go and make a monstrous leap. Let's take a shot on it. Tennessee Titans by number 3. Now, we have the great Bill Zimmerman, who I've been working with over the last 24 hours. He's been introduced to the madness of JJ. Bill, you've worked with a lot of crazies over the years. You've dealt with Dog. You deal with Nikki on a regular basis. Now you got to deal with me. Apologies in advance. Out of the 3 I gave from a buy perspective, give me the one you like the most and give me the one that makes you the most sick. Because I could tell one of these has already set you off, which is okay. I like that.
Well, to me, I love your Titans pick. We actually talked about this on this show a couple months ago, that if you were going worst to first teams, the Titans would be one of those teams. I'd sit there and go, this team, they could surprise some people if things go right. Now, it's dangerous to look at teams that are basically considered bad organizations and think they're going to turn it around. But look, even bad organizations like the Titans, because they are, figure it out sometimes to get things right. So I like the Titans pick. The Cowboys, it's one of those things for me where, like, I kind of want to believe it when I see it, but certainly with an improved defense, there's no reason that team can't win 10 or 11 games.
But you get my point, though, on the Cowboys, though, Bill. I do want to make this clear with Dallas. This is not some sort of referendum now that is going to be different for them in January, but I think they have all the makings of a team that could get to the playoffs and win a division this year. There's a difference.
Yeah, they certainly can. And I mean, the Eagles don't have A.J. Brown. The door is definitely open there for the Cowboys. So I see where you're going with it. I don't have a problem with it. To me, I'm not selling the Cincinnati Bengals, but I am just keeping that one. Like, I'm not touching it, because to me, there's just been too much for me with the Bengals, especially at the top with Zach Taylor. He is a coach I do not trust. I don't, I've heard they're going to do more under center. They're going to do things to hopefully protect Joe Burrow more. That's all smart, and I applaud that. I don't trust Zach Taylor, and I Sexy Dexy, I love. I think that was a good move. I know the 10th pick was steep, but I think that was something they had to do. The defense is definitely going to be better. Am I buying this team? I don't know. Like, if you tell me they're going to go 9-8, sure, because that seems to be what they do every year. There's just something that's just not right with this team. I can't even quite put my finger on it. I know obviously people point to the defense, but to me, it's Zach Taylor. He's just a guy I don't trust. And I think if Burrow had a better coach working with him, if it was like a McVay Stafford, I'll even throw in like Ben Johnson, Caleb, like these pairings, Reed and Mahomes, like I'd have more faith, but Zach Taylor to me is the big problem there.
I understand it, and I think it's justified. However, he did take a team to the Super Bowl. We have a basis of that. won an AFC championship game in as fluky a way as possible, but was down massive points against Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and won the game. The thing for me with Cincinnati, this is such a pivotal year for that entire organization. Like, there are years that are like fork in the road moments where you're either going to take one door or go the other way. There is a path to this year blowing up in Cincinnati to the point where Joe Burrow's like, get me the hell out of here. Like, that could happen if all of a sudden the defense stinks again, the coaching is problematic, the organization is the organization, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not staying here the rest of my career. I'm not doing this. But there's also a pathway to them being a top 5 offensive team in the sport. And with an improved defense, that leads you to double-digit wins. And I think you get there. I think you'll see Baltimore and Cincinnati beat up on a whole lot of teams this year. Baltimore, for different reasons, they're a more well-rounded, more talented team. But those are two teams that I think are going to take names and kick ass basically all season long. I didn't throw Baltimore in there because, like, to me, Bill, like throwing Baltimore and throwing Buffalo in or Seattle or the Rams or any of these teams that are elite, sorry, not allowed to do that. That's obvious. We all expect that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you want to pick those mid-level teams, and who do you think is going to fall back, and who do you think is going to make the jump? So I like where you're going with Cincinnati. Like I said, concerns with Zach Taylor, but I do agree with you. If you are wrong and the Bengals don't click and they are sitting at 6-11 again, I think that's when Joe Burrow. I think that's when the volcano erupts, and we are going to have a wild offseason next year of Joe Burrow speculation.
Okay, I'll give you this. You could get one, not my 3. Give me a buy for 2026. I give you open forum now.
All right. I'm going to do this and I've talked about this a couple times, and our sound guy, Kenny Henderson, is going to roll his eyes at me, but I am buying the Minnesota Vikings because I am buying that Kevin O'Connell is going to figure things out with Kyler Murray, and that's going to make that off. I mean, the fact that their quarterback room was so bad last year that they made Justin Jefferson irrelevant. Do you know how hard that is to do? Like, genuinely, someone as good as Justin Jefferson, because usually bad quarterbacks, they just feed their number one receiver, but no, they couldn't even get Justin Jefferson the ball. Kyler Murray, he doesn't have to be a superstar. If he's functional, that offense takes a lot of steps forward. I do think their defense isn't going to be quite as good, but I trust Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell. I think that's a lethal combo, offense and defense. I think the fact that the Vikings went 9-8 last year, I think they could easily jump to 11-12 wins and win the North.
That is an interesting jumping off point. We will give my 3 sells when we come back, but there was a team that almost found their way into the buy category. Bill made the case for him. I couldn't get there. I'll tell you why I couldn't get there when we come back. It's You Better You Bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Yes, you better you bet. John Jastremski in for Nick Kostos right here. It's Westwood One Sports, presented, of course, by our friends over at BetMGM. And hopefully I can get you guys on board. A couple of futures, double-digit wins for the Dallas Cowboys and Cincinnati Bengals coming your way in 2026. And an over. I'm confident to say it's going to be an over for the Tennessee Titans. They're not going to be a last-place team in the AFC South. They will be improved under Bobby Saleh. Dable calling the plays. Big year 2 for Cam Ward. And I might feel frisky enough to go and take a plus 850. Go big or go home. We didn't do it with the Chicago White Sox. We at least have to have it in the portfolio. That's all I'm saying. We have to have it in the portfolio. Now, Billy Z, a few moments ago, made a very logical and a very compelling case for why I should buy the Minnesota Vikings in 2026. 2 years ago, they were one of the best teams in the NFC. Check. 2, they had a winning record a year ago, despite the absolute you-know-what show their quarterback position was with J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz and some of the other jabronis that ended up getting starts. They were one of 2 guys out there that were just non-competitive. I forget who it was off the top of my head. It was Joe Brosmer. There we go. Thank you. I forgot his name. Shame on me on that. Max Brosmer. How could I forget? Still found a way to get a winning record. And from a coaching standpoint, yeah, their infrastructure looks great. Kevin O'Connor wins games. Gets the most out of quarterbacks, unless their name is J.J. McCarthy. Brian Flores, there are questions about his people skills. There are no questions about whether or not he can call a defense. He's one of the best defensive minds that the sport has to offer, and his defense is hard-hitting, and they're aggressive, and I can't get enough Andrew Van Ginkel. They're really impressive. But I want to remind everybody, including our guy Bill Zimmerman, of one simple fact. Friends don't let friends invest in futures when Kyler Murray is the quarterback. Well, what do I mean by that? Each of the last 2 years, have suckered myself into betting overs on the Arizona Cardinals. Who is the quarterback each of the last 2 years in Arizona? Well, last year it was a split between Kyler Murray and Jacoby Brissett. The year before it was Kyler Murray. And the common denominator was that the Arizona Cardinals took an egg, cracked it over my head, and his egg yolk all over my face. As the Who famously once said, I won't get fooled again. So I will let Billy Z take the victory lap if the Minnesota Vikings go to the playoffs and Kyler Murray is an improvement over J.J. McCarthy and they find a way to hang in a very spirited and a very competitive NFC North. I, for one, though, will not be taking my hard-earned American dollars and investing in that. I will be sitting that one out. That's why Minnesota did not find its way onto the buy category, because as I was about to submit the yes, I like them, but Kyler Murray is the quarterback. Can't do it. Now, we have ourselves for 2026. And I always like to look at teams, at least for one of the 3, without question, to be teams that were playoff teams from a year ago. And I think in many ways, you can take a team in the Final 4. And if you do this exercise, you can find teams each year, Final 4 teams, write them all down, look at the next year, go and get juicy plus odds, and take one of them to miss the postseason. Washington was the perfect example of that, were they not? Washington a year ago added a ton of age to their roster. They were still basking in the glory of beating Tampa and beating Detroit and winning that game on the road and sending the Lions spiraling in a year where they thought they were going to the Super Bowl. And it was just a year from hell from Jaden Daniels. It was the year from hell for the Washington Commanders. And they were such a classic case of a team that played over their heads, that exceeded expectations. That's a team you should look to fade the following season. Well, The New England Patriots also fit that description. Has anybody seen the schedule for the New England Patriots in 2026? It is absolutely, positively brutal. And that includes 4 games with the Jets and the Miami Dolphins, which is beneficial, which will help. But you got 4 games with the AFC West. 3 of those 4 games are extremely difficult. The Chiefs, Chargers, the Broncos. Then you throw in the fact that you got to play the entire NFC North. Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. Not easy. New England's playing a first-place schedule. New England was a team that was incredibly fortunate. If you look at a lot of the games they won throughout the course of the year, I thought they had a very fluky postseason run. They took on a Charger team with no tackles and a fraudulent, overrated quarterback in Justin Herbert. Sorry, nerds. I know you're not going to like to hear that. The golden boy, the chosen one, is yet to win a playoff game and has stunk in every single playoff game. He wet the bed. Then they took on another quarterback who wet the bed in C.J. Stroud. And then did I mention that they matched up with Jarrett Stidham in the AFC Championship game? They had a very easy road to a Super Bowl. They were exposed and exposed in a big way when we saw them match up with the Seattle Seahawks. I know they added A.J. Brown. I know Drake May is super talented. Super Bowl hangover is real, folks. There's also a hangover from maybe what's going on with some of the extracurriculars with Mike Vrabel. I don't know if that's a huge deal, but it enhances my case. It doesn't hurt my case. New England is not going to win the AFC East, and they are a prime team to miss the postseason. With that schedule, knowing they're not winning a division, do they get to enough wins to be a wild card team? I am going to say no, they do not. I will bet New England to miss the playoffs. Therefore, we are selling stock in the 2026 Pats. 1 down, 2 to go. Now, this is where I think I'm going to upset a whole lot of folks that are working with me here on a You Better You Bet team. I know we have a bunch of folks who are in Chicago at the moment. Billy Z, I promise, I love you. You're my boy. Dan, who we work with, is saying, say the Chicago Bears. I'm saying the Chicago Bears. I am waiting for the reckoning. I lost way too much money last year, fading the Chicago Bears, waiting for the other shoe to drop. So many close victories. Always a market correction with that. Always. Hey, and if you think I'm wrong, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago won an absurd amount of close games. We got a market correction. Even for a team that had Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, all of the pedigree, all of the success, there was a market correction. I think there will be a market correction with Chicago Bears. And I'm a Caleb Williams guy. I love the improv. I love the athleticism. He wowed you in some of these comebacks, especially against Green Bay. The throw against the Rams in the divisional round was amazing. The Bears defense stinks. First place schedule, brutal division. And in order for the Bears to be a bye, it has to be a monstrous leap for Caleb. If it's more of the same from Caleb, fun fourth quarters, uncertain, all sorts of wild unpredictability, with a bad defense and a good division and a really tough schedule, and everybody now gunning for the Bears, the Packers twice, the Vikings defense, the Lions, who had a year from hell a season ago, I just think they're the classic case of a team that regresses. Because the history of the league tells us the Patriots and the Bears are 2 types of teams that take steps back for a variety of different reasons. Patriots take advantage of an all-time soft schedule in both the regular season and in the postseason. The Bears, and just the idea that, hey, how do they do this again? Ben Johnson's tremendous, tremendous offensive mind and did a great job in year 1. Go shut me up. Go shut me up. That's my advice. I'm going to trust Priors on this. And that's why I'm going to fade Chicago here as far as making the postseason in 2026. last but not least, I can't wait to fade this team. I'm salivating over the possibility of fading this team. I think this is the year it finally blows out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to remind everybody, we are not living in 2010. This is not 2014. The coach-quarterback combo for Pittsburgh is decrepit Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Every year, sharps have been dying to take the Steelers to go under their win total for the season. And every year they convince themselves, this is the year it's going to be different. This is the year it's going to be different. Well, what's the common denominator? The Mike Tomlin factor is now gone. And there was a certain obvious floor that Tomlin brought to the table. They were never going to be a bad team. They were never going to bottom out. He's too good a motivator. He's too good a rah-rah guy. He gets his teams up for certain spots situationally time and time again. But there was also an obvious lack of a ceiling because of the quarterbacks they've had on the roster the last few years. And they squeezed everything they possibly could out of Aaron Rodgers in one season. They won a couple of games in the fourth quarter. They had a great win against Detroit at the end of the regular season. They won that dramatic game against Baltimore where I still, for the life of me, can't believe Baltimore choked and found a way to lose that game on the missed kick. That should have been it for Aaron Rodgers. Instead, he's coming back for more. It's a different head coach. I don't know if you're going to get the same level of motivation out of that defense. A lot of age on that defense. How many games is Watt going to play? And Baltimore's really good. Cincinnati is really good. The Steelers are playing a first-place schedule. I think this has 6-11, 7-10 written all over it. You finally get that losing season in Pittsburgh. So, my cells, New England, Chicago, follow the trends. The eye test, follow the Steelers. Now, Billy Z, I know I'm not getting a blessing on the Bears. I get it. You do like the Vikings, but you're Mr. Bear, you're Mr. Chicago. I apologize in advance. I do. I apologize.
Now, look, I'm not selling the Bears to miss the playoffs, but here's the thing. I'm not going to argue really any of your premises. I do see the Bears as a definite regression candidate. And I know you said the defense stinks. I don't think the back seven is horrible. I think it's okay. Their front four on defense is terrible. And to me, what I've been saying all off season long is that's what's holding the Bears from just being a playoff team to being a true Super Bowl contender. If they went out there and went and got Max Crosby or Dexter Lawrence or something to make that defensive line functional, where they might be able to get pressure with four guys, because Dennis Allen is just going to have to blitz the hell out of quarterbacks all season long to get any pressure. That's where the problem is. I do think Caleb Williams
did a good job with that defense last year, all things considered, Billy. He really did. Like, I felt like he squeezed every last ounce of talent out of them, and they won turnover margin. Like, I thought he's a horrible head coach. He's a good defensive coordinator.
Exactly. And that's my hope for the Bears in terms of long term, is that this becomes like Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, where there's just stability, because Spags isn't getting another head coaching job and neither is Dennis Allen. So he could be there for a long time if him and Ben Johnson work out well. So that's the hope that maybe they can turn into that. But this year, I do agree with you. I think 2027 is going to be a huge year for the Bears. They're going to actually open up a ton of cap space. They're going to be able to spend. They have draft capital to trade if they want to do it. I think this year is good. They're going to kind of spin their wheels in the mud. I don't think they'll be bad. I think they'll probably be like 10-7, probably be like a 6-7 seed in the playoffs. So I'm not selling the Bears on missing the playoffs, but I'm not going to argue your premise.
Okay. See, I do think you're set up for long-term success with those two. But I just feel like you outkick the coverage so much in year one. There's the step back in year two, and I think there's the big step up potentially next year. It's just a tough division. That's the problem I have. Packers are good brutal every year. Lions are loaded from a talent standpoint, although I do wonder with Detroit. The nerds are going to love them. The advanced stats are going to love them. The pushback I continue to have with the Lions is this. They were never set up better to go and win a championship than they were 2 years ago. And like when those opportunities in sports slip through your fingers and you don't have Patrick Mahomes or you don't have Josh Allen, and they don't, like they have a workman-like solid quarterback in Jared Goff, you kind of wonder, hey, like the window, it's closed. That's my problem with the Lions. I don't know who I'm picking to win the NFC North yet. I could just tell you I will not pick Minnesota because of Kyler Murray, and I will not pick the Bears because of just this. Everything went right a year ago, and it's just like NFL doesn't work that way. That's why the Patriots, like, you had way too much good karma and good juju. We're getting a market correction this year. I believe in the market correction, you know?
Yeah, and look, your other, New England and Pittsburgh, I couldn't agree with you more 100%. Now, I think New England probably makes the playoffs, but I mean, a 14-3 team, I think they could easily fall back to 10-7. Easily. And I mean, that's a 4-win difference. That's a huge regression for New England. And Pittsburgh, I'm with you. When Mike Tomlin stepped down, I was like, all right, this team is finally going to do what they need to do. They need to kind of reload this roster, maybe trade TJ Watt. They need to get a younger quarterback in here. They need to figure some things out. And then to run it back with Aaron Rodgers. Did the Pittsburgh Steelers, did Omar Khan and ownership, did they watch the game against the Houston Texans in the playoffs? Did they see what Aaron Rodgers couldn't, like, he could not play in the second half? It is over for him. And as a Bears fan, I'm enjoying every minute of it, but there is no reason to try and run this back with Pittsburgh. I agree with you. The losing record comes, which will just bring up the aura of Mike Tomlin is going to start growing in Pittsburgh. I know Steelers fans had soured on him for a while. That's going to grow again if the Steelers have a few losing seasons in a row with Mike McCarthy.
Start thinking about all unders for Pittsburgh. There's a whole lot of blow-up potential with that team. Lot of blow-up potential. I know it hasn't happened in forever, and people are saying, hey, JJ, every year they have a winning record. But you nailed it. Mike Tomlin was the head coach every single one of those years. He has walked out that door. And this is not trying to be like fully anti-Mike McCarthy. This is about their perception for where they are as a franchise. They should have retooled. They should have taken a monstrous step back. Instead, they're like chasing something that to me is just not reasonably attainable. When we come back, we got best bets to send you on your way. We need some winners. We got an afternoon in baseball. Is there going to be another future that I could throw into your portfolio to get you ready for the start of the football season? And just a reminder, if LeBron wants to win a championship, there's one place he should go. He's not going to go there, but he should go there. It's John Jastremski IN for Nick Kostos. You better, you bet. Right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Home stretch, You Better You Bet. John Jastremski having a blast, might I add. Filling in for the great Nick Kostos. You know, when I got the call from Billy Z, he's like, you're around to do a couple of shows. And listen, there's 10 zillion things on my calendar. And I love being able to work like certain opportunities. Like this was one where I'm like, bro, I get to quit a schedule, hold the fort down. This is prestigious show. This is a show I love coming on as a guest. It's like near and dear in my heart. I'm like, hey, we got to. I told Billy Z, I'm like, listen, whatever they do, whatever Nicky likes to do, we want to just keep it humming that way. We want to keep it flowing. Want you guys to enjoy. So hopefully you've had some fun over the 2.5 hours and change. Get an early payout for a 2-goal lead. Place a pregame bet on any World's Game match. If your team takes a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours, regardless of the outcome of the game. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Almost lost the last portion of that read, but we have it. Now, we need some winners today. We have an afternoon in baseball. I want to give you at least a couple to have some fun with, and we can track throughout the course of the day. And if they lose, you guys can get my replies and my feelings and make fun of me. It's totally fine. I'm totally game for it. I was very tempted to give you guys the Yankees today, and then I realized it's Paul Blackburn in an opener role taking on Rasmussen, who's one of the best starters in the American League, and a guy, historically speaking, the Yankees never, ever, 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 ever hit. If you like anything in the Yankee game, the play to me is under. The Yankees have struck out 10 zillion times over the last 2 weeks. They struck out consecutively 17 times on Monday and Tuesday's game, and they got shut out on Wednesday. Under is probably your play for Yankees Rays. I wouldn't go anywhere near the side. Speaking of a game, I would go near the side. Underdog play. Friends don't let friends bet the Kansas City Royals, right? JJ bet them to win the division. Wrong. JJ bet them over wins. Wrong. You know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to bet the Kansas City Royals because they're plus money against Sean Manaea. Michael Wacha, believe it or not, has thrown the ball pretty well for KC. Manaea is pitching to an ERA that's close to 5. You're going to lay money with the Mets? Have you watched the Mets this year? I'll take plus money with a terrible Kansas City Royal team and hold my nose. Give you another one I like. See, I want to get back in the good graces of the folks from Chicago. The White Sox have lost the first 2 games of this series against the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox are on fire. They've gotten themselves, believe it or not, back into a pennant race. I think it's today. Chicago, line opened at 115. It's up to 125. I know Anthony Kay is incredibly mediocre, but I think this is a game against Sandoval. You see the White Sox go and get going. Let's take the White Sox minus the 125 on BetMGM. And then, do we have anything else we like in Major League Baseball? I gave you a few there. I gave you the under in the Yankee game. I gave you the Royals at plus money. I gave you the White Sox. Nah, I'm not going to give you another play. But I am going to give you one future that you should go and take. Because you should always look to have in the portfolio a Super Bowl future that's greater than 10-1. Like, if it's under 10-1, it's like, is it even worth it? And in many cases, the answer to that question is no, unless it was the Kansas City Chiefs and what they're able to do. But there's one to me that makes a lot of sense. And I see it at 17-1. And I know what the chatter is. Hey, the Rams added Myles Garrett. It's all in for McVay, Stafford, and company. Then it's Seattle in that division. Oh, it's Mike McDonald's defense, everything that comes with that. Now, nobody repeats anymore. Unless you're the Chiefs. Doesn't happen. San Francisco sitting at 17-1, to me, is very, very appealing. They had a year from hell. Everybody went down with injury. Yet the offense was elite. Brock Purdy played great. Christian McCaffrey basically turned back the clock and looked like Christian McCaffrey we saw in Carolina. There's a ton of talent on the defense, a defense that was ravaged by injury. Kyle Shanahan's an outstanding coach. They know how to win games. And normally with the Niners, and the calculus changed a little bit on this a year ago. Because normally they either miss the postseason or like go to the Super Bowl. This happened to be a year that they ended up losing in the divisional round. But I still am a firm believer of all of the talent you have on that team. A lot of pedigree on that team. A lot of pride on that team. And it's kind of like a now or never type year for the Niners, who are just getting older and older by the minute. But I still think there's one last run for that team. So I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. At 17-1, is it a ticket I'd like to have? Yes. Yes, because I think they'll be in the playoffs, and I think that number will drop as the season goes along. Now, as a final thought from me, LeBron James is going to end up with either the Golden State Warriors or the Cleveland Cavaliers. Good, I think he's going back to Cleveland. I think he wants the homecoming. I think he wants to be able to finish it where it all began. Like, I think there's a lot of the emotional heartstrings pulling in that direction. But if LeBron wants to go and win a championship, there is an obvious fit for me that has not been discussed, and I don't think there's any way he'd go there. But my goodness, if he's willing to take the minimum, and he's got the opportunity to go and play with Jokic. I know the Western Conference right now, the talk is, hey, it's just San Antonio and Oklahoma City. Justifiably so. Jokic is still a top 2 player in the world. He has not lost it. Let's not beat around the bush. The Nugget team has not been any good around him. Get Gordon back. Get LeBron on a minimum contract. That's the spot to go and win a championship. He could do it. LeBron, Murray, Jokic, Gordon, I'm in. Too bad it won't happen. I do look forward to the Knicks beating LeBron James in the postseason. That will be fantastic. They could beat Boston, Philly, and Cleveland. I mean, that is my perfect road to a repeat. I want to thank the entire crew. They were great. So many names to thank. Laura, Dan, I'm like rolling through it. Tyler, Kenny, the great Billy Zimmerman, all of the above. It's been an absolute blast filling in for Nick Kostos. Let's bring these tickets home to roost, right? If you remember anything here on this fine, wonderful day, our 3 buys, our 3 sells, hopefully we'll go 6 for 6 and carry that good vibe throughout the fall, into the winter, and everything that comes with it. Enjoy this wonderful Thursday. John Jastremski signing off. Enjoyed it. You better you bet right here on Westwood One Sports.